Greetings, I'm Caroline Fox, Supervisor of Elections. This year, we are thrilled to invite you to join us in celebrating the 60th anniversary of the territory's election system and the remarkable individual who has ensured that every citizen has the right, access, and the opportunity to vote. To honor this milestone, we have asked several notable Virgin Islanders to share their experiences serving in the legislative branch of the Virgin Islands government and their participation in the election process. In our third episode of Marking Milestones this evening, we will have the privilege of hearing from the senators at large representing St. John, former Senators Cleon Creaky Hodge, Craig Bassinger, and Armando Rocky Liebert. During this conversation, they will discuss their over 30-year journey in campaigns, building relationship with voters, and the legacy they have established with their former colleagues. I anticipate a lively discussion, so let's begin and hear what they have to say.
Okay, well, I'm excited. I'm honored to be considered notable. All I did was just step up to the plate and run for office to help with the making of the laws and trying to better the territory. I got into politics in the mid 1990s, and I noticed that people in the Virgin Islands were living in kind of little enclaves, little segregation. And I said, I've been living here for 10 or 15 years, and I really don't know that many West Indian folks. So I decided to go a place where there weren't so many continentals. And I find West Indian culture very appealing. And the hearts of West Indian culture I really like it. So I volunteered for a campaign on St. John for Wayne Chinnery, who was running for governor. And I met many people who I'd never met before. And I really enjoyed it, the social aspect. I'm pretty outgoing, so I tend to talk to people. And if you're in politics, people want you to talk to them. But if you're just going up and talking to people randomly, they wonder, why are you talking to me? So being in politics was really good for my gregarious personality type. And so I did that campaign, and afterwards I noticed that the senator at large was running unopposed. And I thought, well, I don't think I could ever win, but I'll run because people deserve a choice. And that way there can be a debate and things like that. Plus I'll learn a lot more. And I did it one time as an independent, and I really enjoyed it. I got to know St. Thomas and St. Croix better than I ever had before, because I had lived on St. John for decades, and we St. Johnians, we tend to stay on St. John unless we need to come grocery shopping or something like that, or see a movie. So it really expanded my horizons. And then I ran as an independent, and after people saw what I did, I only got like 15% of the vote. But then again, I only spent $1,000. And the Democratic Party came to me and said, we'd like you to run as our candidate next time. And I said, why would I want to do that? And they said, because teamwork, and we'll help you and we'll train you and things like that. And I just never looked back, because the people of the Democratic Party really they taught me politics. And I had been a scientist before that, working for Fish and Wildlife. So I had a lot to learn. Let me tell you, it didn't come easy. But I learned slowly but surely. So that's how I got into politics. What really comes to my mind that moved me the most was that I got into politics as a way of meeting more diverse people. And I did not know where it would lead because I was satisfied with each run. And so when I actually was elected, it was almost a shock. My campaign manager, Omar Henry, had really taught me so much. And because he understood politics, he was a relentless campaigner. He told me that that what I had to do was open myself up completely to the culture of the Virgin Islands. And he said, people will elect you, even though you're a continental, and there are no continentals in the legislature. He said, you have something that people want. And after I was elected, people would walk up to me after seeing me do it for a few months. They'd just walk up to me in the street and touch my arm and say, Basinja, thank you, and walk away. I did not ever think I would be elected as the senator at large. I had been working for Fish and Wildlife, which could be an ideal job for someone who's trained as a marine biologist. But I noticed that the government was sort of dysfunctional. And I realized that about 60% of that comes from the way the federal government treats us, and about 40% of it came from our choice to be put in a box by the federal government. And I thought I could improve that. But I also felt that we needed really good schools and education. And I felt that we needed people to be in jobs that they actually liked. Not just a job, but a job that really satisfied them and their inner nature. And I felt that we needed to restructure the Virgin Islands government so that people could move freely in government service and get to a position where they were satisfied with their job. The reason I didn't consider running as a St. Thomas, St. John senator was that my first goal was to get to know the whole of the Virgin Islands better. And by running as an at-large senator, I had to get to know St. Croix. And I really resonate with the struggles of St. Croix. And you know, I'm just so proud of the history of St. Croix, the fact that the emancipation in 1848 really originated there, because the fire in people's soul to be able to be treated fairly was so strong on St. Croix that they took their own lives at risk. And that spirit is still alive on St. Croix and even throughout the Virgin Islands. So I wanted to get to know St. Croix better. And so I would say that the at-large position also, the at-large senator must live on St. John. And there is no direct representation in our system for St. John. So there's sort of a nod of the hat by saying the person who is the senator at large must live on St. John. But what I saw was that the previous senator at large had become a St. Thomas phenomenon. I mean, if you go to St. John, even today, people will bemoan the fact that St. John doesn't really get any attention. It's just like a cash cow to give $20 or $25 million worth of property tax, but everything else is an afterthought. Right now, today, years and years, how many years is it? 7 years after Hurricane Irma, our children on St. John are still learning, not in the Julius Eastbrow School, but in modular units in the ball field of the school. So not only are they getting substandard facilities, but we also don't have a facility available for the upcoming carnival. We used to have really wonderful carnival shows all during carnival season, which comes on the day after Emancipation Day on July 4th. So you see, St. John doesn't really get its full attention. So I ran for senator at large, thinking I could give a good voice to St. John. And it's one of my proudest accomplishments that I really brought St. John to the attention of my colleagues in the legislature, and I found that 80% of the time they would vote with me on issues that were important for St. John. My legacy, you know, there are a number of things. The first bill that I passed that was important, I thought, was that we defined in law sexual harassment, and we prevented, or we made it illegal. I learned coming into the legislature that we had no laws against it, and yet many people, mostly women, but sometimes men, who are in a position in government where a hostile workplace is formed because expectations are levied upon some of our workers that make them very uncomfortable. And I'm also proud to say that all of my colleagues voted for it, including one of whom was under investigation for sexual harassment in the legislature at the time. You know, the newspaper's always focusing on the negative. And, you know, there's so many problems that have remained unsolved for a long time, like more than a decade. And yet, somehow, I retain hope that we can continually tread the path of upliftment and make things better. Unless we make it better here in the Virgin Islands, we're going to continually lose some of our best folks. We don't want them to do their whole career in the mainland and then come back when they retire. We want people to go get educated abroad, be it in the mainland or elsewhere. We want them to come home and make the Virgin Islands a better place. Yes, well, thank you so much for the opportunity to participate in this 60th anniversary celebration of the election system of the Virgin Islands.
Okay, let's begin where it all started. It started in Cruz Bay, where I was born. And then my parents moved to Coral Bay. We moved in a small area. We used to call it Eden. Now it's called Zooten Fall. But in Coral Bay, we never had many things, many activities. For example, I never grew up with TV, bicycles. It just was a poor family. We wasn't that rich at all, you know. And so we had to do with what we had. We created things. We had things like yo-yo. We do that, and tap and those things. We made them, like a mango seed, that kind of thing. But I grew up in a time when, because my parents wasn't that well off, I didn't have a room of my own. So I had to sleep on the floor. You know, and you know, the old people would say, that's one place you can't fall off of, you know. But how we did it was that all the old clothes that we had, we would put them on the ground at night. And my bedroom was the kitchen. So I had to go to sleep late, and I had to get up early because my mama had to take care of my father, who was an ambulance driver, and he had to get up and make breakfast for him very early. So by 5 o'clock, so I gotta get up. You know, so my sleep, you know, got short. But that was that's part of how I grew up. And it moved from there until we were able to move on to get a home of our, you know, our own. My father and I, we built it. You know, my father was a guy, took a job with a contractor. He knew nothing about carpentry, masonry, or none of that. But he went to work for free. He just wanted to know how to do it. And once he learned to do it, we decided we're going to build our own house. And there was only one part we had a problem with. The part we had a problem was with electrical work. He didn't have that. So when I went to high school, he would tell me, go to the electrician teacher and ask him, how do you put in a receptacle or switch? And he would read a book. At the time, he had moved to be a fireman. And he would read it, and he said, you know, when you come back and you tell me what you learned from him, I'll tell you what I read. And that's how we did it. And by weekend, I was up in the ceiling putting up lights. We did it forever. That's how, he was that kind of guy. That's how we were. That's how I grew up. It started, I was a school teacher at Julius Sprout School. And when I started at Carl Bay, which was Guy Benjamin School, then I moved to Julius Sprout. And then I ended up moving to Eudora Kent High School. But I moved there because of politics. I began working for Dr. Gabriel Sprout, who became the Senator at Large. And he was an ICMR. And I thought that, hey, if he's an ICMR and I'm going to work for him, I should join the party, because I was never a party member. I was an independent person. And so I joined the party. It wasn't no Cyril King and all of those things. It had nothing to do with that, just with him. But what happened in 1982, he lost. So I had to look for my job again, and my job in St. John at Julius Sprout was gone. So I had to take a job at Eudora Kent High School. And how I really ascended into politics was I had a bright class, a lot of good students. So I said one day, if y'all do so well, I'm gonna take you to the capital, where the legislature, where our government works, see how it works. So I took him on a field trip. And the students, the next following day when he came back, I asked them, to explain to me what happened, because I said, look, language is fine, but it's not all to life. Life is a whole lot of things that you're going to encompass with, but you need to know what's happening in the government. So these students came back and they said to me, Mr. Laibod, you should do that, I think you could do that job. I said, no, this guy, he said, no, I think you should do that. And 2 years later, I was running for office, and the rest is history. I taught, like I said, I taught at Guy Benjamin, Julius Sprout, Eudora Kent, and UVI, all Spanish, different levels. But I got into Spanish because of my father. If you know the family, all of us have Spanish names. Juanito, Juanita, Angelo, Felicita. He loved Spanish. Couldn't speak a lick, but he loved Spanish. And at home, right, he listened to a station in those days you call KVM. But the old folks used to say, the Spanish station cutting in like a Spanish station. That's how they were. Because the Puerto Ricans are the fastest articulator of the sound. They speak faster than anybody else. So I got involved in that, and then I took it in school. And a man who encouraged me to go on was a man named Elroy Sprout. He was my teacher in Julius Sprout School. And I had graduated from high school, and he came to Carl Bay and he saw me. He said, Armando, that's what he called me, Armando. He said, Armando, what are you doing for summer? What do you plan to do after you graduated now? I said, man, I gonna look for a little job, find a nice girl, and I gonna lie him, I gonna be all right. He said, no. You need to go away to school and come back and take my job. He said, did you write to any college? I said, no, I didn't do one. He said, I'll tell you what, it's kind of a little late now, but I know some places in Puerto Rico and schools, so I'm gonna help you write them. And lo and behold, I got accepted. And from there, I went to school, and I came back and taught his class. At the same school I was teaching, and then the rest is history. It opened up so many doors for me. That's how it worked. I'm gonna tell you about a guy that I served with. His name is Celestino White. Everybody know him as he's a jokey guy, all that, but what they don't know is that this guy's a clever guy. He's not just jokey, he's pretty smart, pretty sharp. But what he had was the ability, the gift of gab. And he knew in politics, and he had courage. In the Senate, you gotta have people who are not afraid to take position. So he was one of those, not afraid to take position. And when I was president, you needed to have a majority leader that you can work with. So we orchestrated a lot of things. And if I said, well, look, Celestino, we're gonna move this here today, there'll be no overrides, I could count on it that he mastered the floor, that wouldn't happen. So I would say one of the few politicians around here, and I say he's a politician because I'm not. The things that he can do, I don't know anybody else right now in my time could have done it. You know, I've seen him take measures that was everybody supporting for, and by the time he finished the discourse, everybody against it. That's how good he was. People don't understand that, but that I know this. So he is one of the guys, like I say, came with a special talent. Now, I can move measures. As a matter of fact, one measure of mine, he almost killed it. I wanted to do a scholarship for Val and Sal, you know, like how they do all over in the States, where you try to encourage the best minds from our schools to go to university. But he never understood it. So he tried to kill it. I said, listen, man, let me just don't kill this. Let's table it. So I had the ability to develop consensus. You know, in politics, you got to know how to develop consensus. Otherwise, you don't get nothing done. It's not all your way, you know. So that, he's one of the persons there. A couple others, but that's the best one, I think, for now. Everyone who is listening to this understands that it doesn't matter where you come from. Because like I said, I came up with hardly anything at all. Who would believe that a young boy from Coral Bay would ascend to be the president of the Senate? And not only just the president, I'm the first president that ever reigned from St. John. And I did it twice. And not only that, I left office and I came back 12 years later. Nobody else have ever done that. So it shows that depends on who you are, things can happen, and you just have to have faith. You have to believe in yourself, and you gotta be honest with yourself. I pride myself on telling the truth. We want to make sure that everybody succeed well. What I see happening is that people want to see themselves do well, they want to see their family do well, and afterward, the community. And that's the problem we have. And I believe that if our people start to think and look at the contents of the character of individuals that we put in office, we can solve that problem. Because everybody has a history. And if you look at them, you would see exactly how they live. And then you'll be able to judge how they deal with people, how they deal with families and community. So I just want us to be much more vigilant in how we select our people.
I grew up on St. John in the late 30s into 40s, and I have very few negative memories about my growing up. I was raised in a small village of Pastory, not very far from where Bethany School was located, which was our elementary school. And it was a one-room classroom. In different sections of the room were our grades. It was just fun time. You were in school with everybody you knew, everybody you went to church with, and everybody you played with. And that's why I refer to it as fun time. Those are my earliest and fondest memories of growing up on St. John. I was raised by my grandparents. My grandmother was in those days called the woman that bathed the dead, but she was the undertaker on the island. And my grandfather was a police officer. I worked for the government for more than 30 years, right? One thing you'd be interesting to know, and this is why Mrs. Fox was probably interested in getting me to do this interview, is because the election system wasn't really like it is today. We were about maybe I would say between 300 and 400 people, if that many, to vote. I was asked to be the deputy supervisor of elections. Before that happened, we used to vote at the administrator's office under the guidance and close scrutiny of the administrator and his staff. When we became the election system, it was under Mrs. Todman's tenure. There was a deputy on St. Croix, one on St. John, and Mrs. Todman was the overseer of everything. It involved just asking people to go up and vote and telling them the rules and regs that were expected of us. And that was my tenure with the election system. That was probably my introduction into the government of the Virgin Islands. After being an employee of the administrator's office, it was very easy to just slip into that because I was already in the house. After that, then of course I went to school on St. Thomas, my high school years. In those years, we didn't commute. In those years, parents had to find boarding on St. Thomas with relatives or friends. There was no school boat no. Those of us whose parents could have afforded to board us went home on Friday afternoons and came back to St. Thomas on Sunday afternoons. So that was a little different to today, won't you say? My two trailblazers, whom I consider were people of good service, was my father, Henry Cricky, who was a senator too. And after school, in my high school years, I would be waiting for a ride home by sitting in the legislature where they were having session, and I had an opportunity in those teenage years to experience what the legislature was like and things that they did. So that was my first experience in what politics sounded like and was like and what it was expected to be like. After my dad, Earl Benito Otley was my mentor. He was the one who got me from under a tree in St. John on a weekend and told me that the Democratic Party needed a representative in the Senate. At that time, or prior to that, the legislature had district. Julius Sproul was a district. He was our first senator. He was a district senator. Theoval Moorhead, who was my godfather, he was a district senator. And then Elroy Sproul, if I recall, preceded me also, and he was a district senator. And then we went into the at-large, wherein Noble Samuel was the first at-large senator. And it was at that time, of course, Noble Samuel was not connected with the Democratic Party. And it was important to have a person from St. John in the Democratic Party. We would probably have a majority and get more done. And this was Senator Otley's aim. So I think the rest is history, because after I decided, okay, I'll go along with it. Of course, my mother was against it. No, you don't need to be that harassing yourself like your father all over the place. No. But I was determined, and with his encouragement and the encouragement of former Senator Valdemar Hale, see, that's how far back I go. Those are names you just heard about. Coming to a meeting on St. Thomas and being encouraged to do that. Of course, at that time I had come home from being trained as a registered nurse, and my focus was to go into my nursing career. That didn't take place. Like I said, I started to come to meetings on St. Thomas with the Democratic Party. It was decided that I would run at large and take Noble Samuel out. And that happened. And like I said, the rest is history. I would like to congratulate this system and tell them that I'm proud that it has worked well thus far. And my message is to continue to do the bang-up, trusted, in my opinion, hard-working job that you've done for these last 60 years. I have seen it come a long way. My legacy really to others is to, as far as politics is concerned, having been the first female at large coming out of St. John. I would like to see, and I'm seeing it happening, I would like to see more women aspire to leadership roles, not only in the government, but in the election system.